Welcome to Radiant and Resilient. I am just so honored and blessed to be interviewing Amanda Riffee. And Amanda is such a wonderful friend of mine. I met her through the Powerhouse community last year, I think. Yeah, last year. And when we connected, there was just an instant connection. And then as we we're just sharing our journey, our insights, and just different things. I realized why we connect because we're both projectors. When you meet another projector, there's just this beautiful, incredible energy that is felt that no one else really has, and we just have that deep connection. And so, for those of you who don't know who Amanda Riffee is, she is an internationally certified executive coach, a thought leader, event host, and planner. Well, not planner, but event host and podcast host of the Unleashing You podcast, which I've had the honor to be a guest and part of. She also is just on a mission to really help people work on their mindset, work on their self-worth, create a life and a career that they love without the burnout. Because I definitely had burnout. And so I love that. That's just your goal and your mission to really help women. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And yes, I do think actually event planner fit too, because I do have to plan all the events myself. So while I don't do that for clients, that is still a skill set that I have now acquired.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of being an entrepreneur, right? The first time
Exactly.
we do things, it's like we have to acquire new skills that we didn't because you were in the corporate field, I think 17 years of experience being in the
Yes.
corporate world where you didn't have to plan events, you didn't do a podcast, you didn't do all these different things. And so there are new skill sets that you do have to acquire and being open to that because as you start small, you have to do it all yourself. So, can you share a little bit more about being in corporate and then shifting into entrepreneurship? What made you jump into entrepreneurship, make that shift?
Yeah. So I was, like you said, I've been in corporate for almost all of my working career at this point, and the last 10 of those years were in leadership, learning and development and leadership, but learning and development. And I was just at a point in my career where I felt like I was really kind of on that autopilot where like my team was operating really well. Like they were at a really good place. Even my home schedule was like, we knew exactly what we were doing each day. And comfortable works for me for a bit. So, you're like, yes,
Yes.
I do crave being comfortable and safe and all of that,
Yeah.
but I can only stay there for so long before I start to like get that itch to
Mhm.
do something more, do something different. And I was actually reading a book at the time. It's called Money, a Love Story by Kate Northrup. I would highly recommend it. And one of the things that she talked about in there was, of course, having different income streams. And so that kind of sparked an idea in me of, okay, if I love my job, I love what I'm doing, all of that, but I've got some extra bandwidth, why not use that to create another income stream for me? Those who have grown up in corporate know like we can feel pretty fixed on our income. And so that just spurred me to do an exercise where I actually looked at my calendar and I said, okay, I don't want to just get any like a part-time job, but what can I do that would really light me up? So I looked at my calendar and I said, okay, what are the things that I actually really look forward to doing in terms of projects, calls, all of that? And then what are the things that, I kind of secretly hope get canceled? You're like, yes, that meeting just got canceled. Amazing.
Yes.
And so I did that exercise, and what came out of that was I really loved one-on-one conversations with my direct reports, focusing on career growth, personal growth, all of that. And then I also really loved, we had big business resource groups. So really looking at, like, I was in the Pride group, the African Heritage group, the women's group. And I love those conversations because it was really that sense of community and making an impact and wanting to make a difference. And so I unpacked all that and then said, okay, now what do I do with this? and went to the internet and just did search after search after search and just followed any curiosity that I could find. And did that for days, to be honest with you, until I came across coaching. And when I
Mhm.
came across coaching, I was like, this is it. Like, this is the way to package up all of those strengths and the things that I really love. And so from there, I had to, sit down with my husband, have that conversation and say, hey, I really want to invest in, getting a coaching certification. I don't know where it's going to lead. I don't know where it's going to go, but, this just feels like the right step for me. And still at that point, I was envisioning maybe 1 to 2 clients here or there on the side to supplement my income. And the more I got into coaching, the more I got coached myself, the more I started to really see more possibilities for myself. I realized that I was really limiting
Mhm.
what I had pictured and was able to really start dreaming bigger for myself. And so now fast forward, that was only September of 2022. So fast forward to now, I am still working in the corporate sector, but I am now part-time. And I only work Monday through Wednesday for my corporate organization. I've switched over to hourly, so I've totally changed my career trajectory. And I do only leadership coaching for them. And so
Mhm.
the rest of my time is spent building my business, and it all just feels so aligned now.
Yeah, that is so amazing, so incredible, Amanda. And I'm just honored to be a witness to some of that journey because, yeah, I met you last year, 2023, when you were just jumping into it, and just what you've created and the action that you've taken since then has just like really blown me away. I'm just so inspired by you
Thank
because,
you.
yeah, I'm like, I think right after I met you, you started your podcast, and then
hmm
you launched your event. That was what, the beginning of this year?
Yeah, my first big women's event was in February, and I
Yeah.
started planning it in November.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing. And not only that, after the event, you're like, and now I'm going to host a retreat at the end of this year in September. And since then, as you're planning your retreat, you also recently held a brunch. And I'm just like, look at her go. Like, go, go, go. And I love that. So, those that are listening, it's like, talking about following that itch. And that itch, is probably like your intuition, that gut feeling, that you feel, because I know your retreat's all about intuition, which I absolutely love because we're not taught to really tune into and listen to our intuition, but our intuition's there to guide us. And yeah, it can feel really scary. The big goals and the dreams, it's like just that itch to go do something, but it's like, but I don't have the experience, I don't have the knowledge, I don't have XYZ to be able to do it. But it's there for a reason. It's showing our next step. So I love how you recognize, like, okay, yeah, I'm comfortable and I could stay here, but I know I'm meant for so much more. And your intuition was definitely guiding you to that next step, that next level in your journey. And just seeing what you've been able to create and accomplish has just been absolutely incredible. But on this journey, I know that you've definitely come face to face with fear in creating the event and different things. So I'd love for you to talk about, because you have such a beautiful perspective and take on fear. So tell us a little bit more about that fear and how you navigated it.
Sure. This is one of my favorite topics, so much so that I now have a tattoo about fear on my arm. But here's the thing, and we know this, we grow when we're uncomfortable,
Mhm.
period. Like, that is it. We
Yes.
know that. And in order to get into that space, we have to let fear come
Yeah.
along with us, because anytime we are doing something new, trying something new, learning something new, putting ourselves out there, that's when the fear is going to kick in. And so I used to think, and I think many of us really do think this, that fear is a reason why we're not meant to do something.
Mm.
And I think it's
Right.
actually quite the opposite, in the fact that I actually look forward to fear now, because it means that I'm doing something new, and it means that I'm growing. And so when I look at my career and my life, like I wouldn't have had any of those things that you just talked about if I hadn't taken those chances and I hadn't done things scared.
Yes.
Because it does not mean that all of those things that you just rattled off weren't done while feeling insecurities, fear, all of the things that go with it. And so I now have a tattoo on my arm that says, feel the fear and do it anyway. And that to me has been really the key. When people ask me, like, how have you done it all? How have you created all of that? It's like, I've literally just leaned into the fear. And when I feel that coming, I'm like, okay, thank you. That's amazing. Because that means that I'm getting ready for that next step. And that's what I help my clients work with too, is that, when they're afraid to take the next action, we work together to see it through a new perspective, to have someone else believe in that dream along with you, which makes such a difference. And being able to also hold you accountable when you want to give up, because a good coach is not going to let you quit on yourself, and they're going to continue to dig in and dig in and dig in until we get to the root of what's causing that fear and get you to a spot where you can move through it. So I think that to me has been just one of the biggest learnings, is my relationship with fear. I was definitely one of those people who always felt like I had to be 100% prepared, I would say in learning mode forever, until I finally took the action and feeling like, okay, now I know enough, so I'm going to feel confident in taking that action. And what I've learned is that you build that confidence by doing things before you feel ready. When you do it before you actually feel like you're qualified and ready to do it, and that's how you build the confidence, because then every little action that you take from there builds on your confidence, builds on your confidence, builds on your confidence. And so, as you mentioned, I have my first large women's event. It's called Unleashing You Live in Denver in February. And there was 50 plus women in attendance for this. We had female owned pop-up shops. We had food, drinks, like the whole nine. And I was terrified. I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. If you would have asked me, even a month before I decided to start planning Unleashing You Live, I would have been like, heck no, I am totally not ready for that. Like, that is a far away dream. Like, yes, that's on my list, but that's on my list for the future, not for today. And I was working with my coach, and, she's like, well, what's stopping you from hosting your own event right now? And so I started rattling off all, like, I went straight into logical mode. And I was like, just started rattling off all the reasons why I was not ready to do that. Like, what if no one comes? I don't have the connections. I don't have the credibility. I don't have the money. I'm not ready, was essentially what I was saying. And as I was going on and on and on and on about all the reasons why I couldn't do it, I began to hear it differently. And that's key too, is like saying that stuff out loud, because it like kind of takes away its power. And I could hear it differently as I was explaining it to her. And all of a sudden it clicked. I was like, those sure sound like excuses. Like, they really sound like excuses. And so as I was like wrapping all of that up, I said, well, I guess the short answer to your question is me. Like, I'm what's stopping me from doing this. And so something switched in me there, of like, okay, if I can just get out of my own way, who knows what can come of this. And so it still didn't make it any less terrifying. And so then we decided, okay, like, how do we break this down into manageable steps? And we decided, okay, there are 3 things I need to do right now. First, name it. Like, pick out a name for this event. Okay, like, I can do that. That sounds fine. Find a venue. That was actually really fun, like going and touring these places. So find a venue and find a way for people to buy tickets. That was it. Like, that was the only thing that I had to do at the very beginning. And so all of a sudden, that really big, scary dream seemed so much more manageable. And then by the time I got through with those 3 steps, I had built a little bit of confidence and I was ready to take on the next couple manageable steps. And that is how those big dreams are built. And so since then, that event is now annual. We're going to have it every February in Denver. Like you said, that also spurred the idea of the Unleashing You retreat, which is going to be in Steamboat Springs, Colorado in September. And now I have every 2 months smaller local events just to get that in-person element. And so if I hadn't taken that action while still feeling scared, I would still be sitting here dreaming and probably feeling stuck still of what's next, what should I be doing next, all of those things.
Oh, that is so good. Thank you so much for sharing that because, oh my goodness, so many things like were coming to me as you're speaking. And one of the things is like a quote that I remember on my journey, especially around fear from Cheryl Strayed. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's basically just saying like thank you to the fear, which is what you touched upon, is like thank you, and recognizing like the fear is our inclination, it's our sign that that is what we're here to do. That's like our next step, because as you mentioned, like most of the time we associate fear to like life-threatening danger, like that's not what we should do. And what I've come to realize is that there's ego-based fear, which that's exactly where that fear is coming from. It's from our ego, because it's there to protect us, to keep us safe from any life-threatening things. The problem is like we think a lot of things are life-threatening that really aren't. And then there's that soul intuitive fear where it's like, I know that's what I need to do. Yes, I have fear. There's some limiting beliefs obviously coming from ego to protect us, but if I just take that action step, I'll be okay. I'm safe because there's actually nothing life-threatening happening. And so I love how you also recognize like, okay, I had this big goal and dream. Your mentor's like, well, what's stopping you? You're like, me. And it's
Yeah.
true. We are the only ones stopping us from achieving our dreams, from taking action. And that's because of the limiting beliefs that come up and those fears. And so working with her, you're like, okay, how can we make this manageable? And that's something that I realized is like, if you have this big goal and dream, yeah, it may feel like it's 1,000 steps to make it happen. But if we can chunk it down and look at, okay, what is the first step that we need to take, or the first 1 to 2 steps that we need to take, it does feel so much more manageable. And I love how you outlined it and said, okay, the first step is just, what is the name of this event? And I love how you tie it into your podcast because it's the same name. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that crazy and complicated. It can be the exact same name as like your podcast or your community or whatever you've created. Same name. And then the next step is just finding that venue, which you're like, that was so much fun. And then finding a way to get people to invest in it. And again, just really easy, tangible steps. And that is the key to achieving anything that we want in our life, whether even if it's not a business, even if it's with our health or with a relationship, just any area of your life, it's like, okay, we have this big goal. Let's chunk it down to small, simple steps that actually feel easy, feels good. And if there's a little fear there, recognize like, no, we're going to be okay. We're going to be safe. So thank you so much for sharing that. Because like I said, you've just been such an inspiration to me. And I know I definitely wanted an event. And when you shared those limiting beliefs that you had, I was like, yep, I've had every single one of those, which has stopped me from actually showing up and creating an event. So I love that, you're just so open and vulnerable to sharing that, because it has helped, I'm sure, so many other women as well. And another piece that I want to touch is the intuition piece, because that's what your retreat is going to be about in
Yes.
September. So what made you want to dive into intuition? How important is intuition and listening to it on this journey?
Yeah. And thank you for that question, because that is probably my next favorite topic to talk about right now. And I actually just shared this on my podcast too. So if anyone wants to really dig in deep into the full story, but I'll give you the Cliff Notes version today. I was literally sitting in our hot tub in back. I live in Colorado, so it was like snowing. We have a hot
Oh,
tub, like the Colorado dream, right?
yes.
And I was getting in the hot tub. I was all by myself and I was like, okay, what podcast am I going to listen to, while I sit here? And there was just something in me that was like, you don't need a podcast right now. Like,
Mm,
just sit in the silence by
mm,
yourself. And I don't know where it came from. It just kind of popped in my head. And to me, that's what intuition sounds like. And I know it shows up differently for everyone, For me, it's like that tiny, I always say it's like a tiny whisper. It's like what it sounds
yes.
like. And if you don't act on it quickly, it's just going to float right by you. And so I heard that and I was like, you know what? Okay, sure. I'm just going to sit here.
Mm,
And I don't know why, but I'm just going to sit here and like watch the snowfall and all that. And while I was sitting there, I had an idea and I was like, I feel like I should host a retreat.
mm.
Now, let me tell you, this was before I had even hosted Unleashing You Live yet. I had
No way.
not hosted that event yet. It was the beginning of February, so it was getting close, but I hadn't even done that yet. And so, then it's like almost like the voices in your brain, like ego brain and
Yeah.
intuition of like, what are you talking about? Like, you have literally not even hosted this event. Like, what if it crashes and burns and you just invested all this stuff in a
Hmm.
retreat? Like, who's going to want all of this stuff from you? Just again,
Yeah.
all of those ego thoughts start to come in. And I kind of pushed those aside and was like, well, let me just entertain what this could look like. And so I was sitting there and I was like, I just want to bring this like beauty and this
Mm,
peacefulness to other women. Like, I was just feeling so present, so aligned, like in that
mm,
moment. I was like, I really want to share this with other people. And so I started just kind of going through, okay, what could it look like? Oh, I'd love to have a private chef and a hot tub and a gym and the mountains. And, like I was just picturing all of this. I could like see us sitting like in this big mountain home, like all cozied up with blankets, doing journaling and, all that kind of stuff. And the more I thought about it, the more I started to get excited about it. And I'll say the first thing I did when I got out of the hot tub and came back inside was I sent a voice note to my coach. So this is like another plug for coaching, right? Um, and I did that for two reasons. One, because I was excited and I wanted to share that excitement with her. But two, was to hold me accountable.
yeah.
Because in that moment, I felt super excited. But
Mm,
I knew that the longer I let it sit, the further away I'm going to get from that original feeling. And the more I'm going to start to be like, oh, yeah, that's just not a great idea right now. We can do that later. Again, who's going to want to come to that? All of those things. But I sent that voice note to her and it made it real. And so
mm,
then we started like, okay, like how do we plan this out? How can this happen? Um, and to be honest with you, the timing actually worked out beautifully because then I was able to talk about the retreat at my live event where we were already all together
mm.
feeling that fantastic connection and growth. And I'm like, who wants to build on this? Like, let's build on this. And so now it's, I've got the live event at the beginning of the year, the retreat at the end of the year, plan on making both of those annual. And it's kind of like the bookends for my big events. And so as I dug in more, I was like, this is what the retreat needs to be about, is exactly that moment of I just followed my intuition and
Mm,
took one small action before all of those other thoughts, took over. And that's what I want to help other women do too, because we all have it, but
yes.
we sit on it and we sit on it and we sit on it and we wait, and then our dreams never happen. So that is really why I want to dig in so deep into intuition and ego at the Unleashing You retreat, is to really help other women follow that North Star. Like, it's their own North Star. It's never going to steer you wrong. It's never going to steer you wrong, in my
No,
opinion.
never.
And just teach us how to tap into that, because I think we have been so conditioned over time to just quiet that voice.
Yes.
And so sometimes we can't even hear it anymore.
Yes, you're so right. And I truly believe we all have it as well. And you said it so beautifully. It is like a whisper. And because it's a whisper, it's easy to question it. Because we're like, wait. did I hear that correctly? No, because the voice from the ego is really loud. It's very loud, it's bold. It wants to stop you in your tracks from going after everything that we want. But the intuition's very soft and subtle and a whisper. And like you said, we can miss it if we're not tuning into that. And I've definitely been working on honing into my intuition because it has guided me. And I recognized when I actually listened to it, I was like, yeah, even though there was a lot of fear and the beliefs and everything coming up, but looking back on my life, I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I listened to my intuition because I had that intuition to start the business when I went to a Tony Robbins event. And I was like, of course, same thing, like, but all the thoughts and fear, I'm like, I don't have a business degree. I don't know how to start a business. You know, all these things are popping up, but I knew that that was what I needed to do. And eventually I did that. I took that action step just like you did for creating that retreat before you even hosted your event. Cause yeah, all the thoughts and the fears of like, but what if this whole event's a flop, you know?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's easy to allow those fears to come in, but we don't have to let them take control. So we can recognize it, allow the fears to come in and beliefs and be like, again, like Cheryl Strayed, you said, it's like, thank you for being here. I know you want to protect me, keep me safe, but I know this is what I need to do. And then from there, it's like, okay, what is that next action step to really lock that in, to build that momentum, to get you going in that direction, I think is key. Because yeah, if we don't take that next action step, then boom, poof, that dream might be gone. And then we're frustrated and feeling stuck because it's like, oh, why we're still here and not feeling fulfilled with the life that we want to create and things that we want to do. And so I love that you just really tuned into that. And it's like a muscle, you know, it's something that once you recognize, you know, you have to just keep tuning into and trusting that. And the more you trust that intuition, the stronger it gets. And I love that you want to teach women that because it is so powerful. And yeah, as a society, we're not conditioned. We're not conditioned to listen to that intuition, but I believe it's a true superpower that we all have. So thank you again for just sharing that. And I'm just excited for your retreat. I wish I could go, but I will have a newborn at that
Right. The
time.
timing is not going to be great for you this year.
No, not this year, but maybe next year. So
Yeah.
if anyone is listening and wants to dive in more, I will pop the link in the show notes so you can sign up and be a part of that. I mean, who doesn't want to be in Colorado in September? I mean, the location alone with a private chef, I mean, that all sounds amazing. So I will definitely put the information in the show notes so you can be a part of it as well. And yeah, there's just so many things that I would love to dive in with you, Amanda. But one last question I always just love to end with is, what does radiant and resilient mean to you?
I love this question because to me, this explains at least my personal experience with becoming a coach and growing a
Yes.
business. Radiant to me, I have people tell me all the time, like how my whole entire energy has
Mm.
shifted
Yes.
after I've become a coach. And I think that's when you find something that you truly love, it shows.
Mm.
It shows in how you speak. It shows in how you hold yourself. It shows in how you show up. Like you become a light
Mm.
and it draws other people in.
Mm.
And I think there's a reason why people say like find what lights you up. This really
Yes.
is true. Like you become a light in that. And then man, you have to be resilient for all the reasons that we just
Yes.
talked about. I mean, there was probably 100 times in just our short conversation where we could have stopped and given up. And growing a business is hard. Personal growth is hard. You know, all of those things are hard. And it's also so worth it.
Mhm.
And I think there's just so much beauty and growth on the other side that you just have to be willing to grow through the discomfort
Yes.
in order to get there.
Yes, that is so beautifully said. Grow through that discomfort because that's what builds the resilience. And then when we're doing what lights us up, we're reconnected to that light that's already within us. Like we we already are the person that we need to become. It's just, yeah, shedding all those beliefs and fears, recognizing it, not allowing it to take control, so that way we can fully step into what we're being called to do and our purpose that is being guided by our intuition. So thank you, Amanda.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to tie it
Yes.
all in, to bring it all in together as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for our conversation today. I mean, there's so many beautiful takeaways for the listeners, and yeah, I'd love for you to share. If they want to learn more about you and your podcast, like where can they find you? The events, everything. Where can they find you?
Yeah. Thank you, Kate. I would say the easiest place is Instagram. I'm at Amanda Riffee _coaching. I post all the things that I've got going on my Instagram. That's really where all the fun happens. I also, of course, have everything on my website, which is acrprofessionalcoaching.com. And I'm sure we'll link all of those things there. You can
Yes.
find out more about one-on-one coaching, which I do everywhere. So that's virtual. And then, of course, the retreat, the live event, all of those things are also on my website too.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, Amanda, for our conversation today. And yeah, you're just such a beautiful light, a beautiful soul. And like you said, like the energy definitely shifts. And I've seen that energy shift in you. And it's just been an honor to be able to witness that and just continue this journey with you and continue our friendship and just keep pouring into so many other women, just sharing your gifts with the world.
Thank you so much, Kate. It was an honor to be here.